We are now recording. So now we're talking about the alternatives. Thank you. We only had about 6 people lined up to remind each other to record, and
we just ignored them.
And we still forgot, but thank you. Okay, so there are 3 alternatives and 1 recommendation for the intersection. And alternatives 1A and 1B are, quote, unsignaled with turn restrictions, end quote. Now, both of these alternatives calm existing traffic patterns at the intersection by prohibiting love lane traffic from accessing Route 25. Might be unpopular, but both alternatives allow traffic exiting Love Lane to make only a right turn onto Old Sound Avenue. And alternative 1B also prohibits left turns off of Main Road onto Love Lane. And let me just magnify one of these for you. Okay, now this is alternative 1. 1A, 1B doesn't allow this turn, that left turn off Love Lane. The pros of these alternatives are that they're simple, they're implementable in the short term, relatively affordable. They reduce conflict points for vehicles, and they establish room for on-street parking on 25. Also, and I'm going to retake the screen here. They also provide westbound 25 traffic that's headed for Love Lane or Old Sound Avenue with a direct line onto the existing Old Sound Avenue traffic lane. That's something that is a real problem at the intersection. All right, so what are the negatives of these alternatives? Well, simply adding crosswalks in this instance it isn't going to vastly improve pedestrian safety, though it's better than nothing. There's a significant, as I mentioned, there's a significant reduction in turn opportunities. People are going to weigh in on that, and all of this work could be done with striping on pavement. It could also be done with curbing. But as with all of the alternatives in this study, they can all be done pretty much with striping on pavement. And I just want to remind everybody that drivers don't respect pavement striping at this intersection or a lot of places in Mattituck. So we really don't want to go the striping route. Now, alternative 2 is signalized with turn restrictions. That's a stoplight. And to justify a traffic signal, thresholds for a 4-hour vehicular volume and crash experience must be met, and this intersection meets those thresholds. The pros, it's very safe, controls conflict points between automobiles, calms traffic, protects pedestrians very well with between the crosswalks and the lights. That westbound traffic on 25 headed for Old Sound Avenue has a straight shot through there. It's no variation. And this establishes the boundaries for on-street parking on 25. What are the cons? Well, it interrupts traffic flow. And anyone who's ever been through the Main Road, Factory Avenue, 6B traffic light knows what that means. It's also a slower and more expensive alternative to implement than alternatives 1A and 1B. The third alternative in the AKRF recommendation, and it's the town's preference according to the study, is a roundabout. The roundabout would be it would be 100 feet in outer diameter, and it would fit into, here's the outer diameter, and it would fit into the existing footprint of the intersection. In this intersection, this alternative also recommends that at New Suffolk Avenue, there'd be no left turns onto westbound Route 25. So if someone wanted to go left or west on 25 from New Suffolk Avenue, they would turn right, go around the roundabout, and then head west. Now, the pros of this are that it really should slow and calm traffic and improve safety. It virtually eliminates the chance of a right angle, left turn, and a head-on collision. It protects pedestrians with crosswalks and islands, it facilitates traffic flow, and there's very little encroachment on private property. And in fact, it expands the space available to pedestrians. It has some cons. It's probably the longest and most expensive of the alternatives to implement. Eastbound traffic on 25, at least in this very early stage of design, suggests that there's really no reason at all to slow down there. And also the traffic sight line for the driver to this crosswalk might not be quite good enough. But those are details that can be addressed in design. Again, all or some of this can be done with pavement striping. We would hope not. But it can also be done with curbing and raised space, and even mountable curbing here in the center to accommodate the largest vehicles. And that brings us to what we feel is the largest negative about this recommendation. That is the New York State Department of Transportation feels that the 100-foot diameter a roundabout is too small and recommends a much larger one. Here's a look at that. The Department of Transportation recommends a 120-foot outer diameter roundabout. That would have about the same general pros and cons as the recommended 100-foot outer diameter roundabout. But we have major concerns with this DOT position. And I'm going to start with, sorry about that. I'm going to start by enlarging this a little bit. Our biggest concern, our first concern, and the biggest, is that this 120-foot diameter intrudes the roundabout into Love Lane and into Old Sound Avenue. And this is already a very large intersection, and it doesn't need to be bigger. And if you're going to make this a roundabout, don't take it into Love Lane, don't take it into Old Sound Avenue. We're looking for the exact opposite of that, and that is to protect these areas particularly, and the pedestrians who are drawn to it. Additionally, this 120-foot outer diameter has the potential to encroach on more, if not all, of the private property around the existing intersection. And this is not only has a lot of time-consuming and expensive potential legal ramifications, but it's contrary to a key recommendation we made in our 2016 report, because it was just something we didn't want to get involved in. We do want to get the intersection fixed up. Now, the DOT recommends this larger roundtable to accommodate the largest trucks on the highways, and these are 67-foot tractor trailers. But a 67-foot tractor trailer can traverse the 100-foot outer diameter roundabout so long as it has mountable curbs in the center. And the study points out that there are few 67-footers coming through Mattituck on 25 already, perhaps one a week. And Route 48, meanwhile, a couple blocks north, is the designated New York State truck route, and trucks are encouraged to go that way in any case. We really do believe that this particular aspect from the DOT is an over-design, and we really want the powers to be to stick with the 100-foot outer diameter within the existing footprint. Okay, so we've seen the recommendations for calming traffic in the intersection. Now we're going to look at this at what the study proposes to calm traffic to protect pedestrians. Now, as I said earlier, Complete Streets is a transportation planning and design approach to improve safety and mobility. It seeks safer, more efficient transportation network by reducing crashes, the number of crashes, reducing pedestrian risk. And it's important for us to understand, thinking of the study, that under the umbrella of Complete Streets, The study provides a range of alternatives which can be implemented separately or together and throughout the study area. So in this section of the study, this is where you find the tools and the techniques for calming traffic and making it safer for all of us to cross the street. Here's alternative one. There are no recommendations in this section, just alternatives. Install pedestrian refuge islands. Right, this alternative is shown at the intersection of Main Road and Bay and Legion. So we have cemetery, bank, gas station, diner. What they propose here is by installing a crosswalk, and there are many examples here, and a pedestrian refuge island, you accomplish at least two things. The actual crosswalk gives the pedestrian a nominally safe place to cross the highway. And by narrowing the traffic lane with the island refuge island, that slows traffic because when they get a narrower space, they slow down. But it also gives pedestrians the protection of a curb, raised curb, and a shorter crossing distance, especially if you don't make it all the way across the road on your first attempt. So these islands can be curved space or they can be painted on pavement. Again, let's go all out and just put curbs in. All right, alternative two is install neck downs. And now this alternative is shown at the intersection of Main Road and Wickham. And these are commercial residential properties all the way around it. Everybody's first question, what is a neck down? Well, the neck downs are these little curb bump outs that you see on these corners. Okay, these little bump outs that the crosswalks start and end at. By narrowing the traffic lane, they have the effect of slowing, calming traffic, and they give pedestrians the protection of a curb and a shorter crossing distance for crossing the highway. And they also help establish space for on-street parking. The third alternative is install on-street parking lanes wherever possible and appropriate. On-street parking gives the drivers the impression of the narrower lanes, travel lanes that slows them down, but also parking lanes work well with curb extensions, pedestrian refuge islands, and neck downs. So going forward, $1 to $2 million to build a roundabout, about another $500,000 for broad, not comprehensive, but broad implementation of complete streets, tools and techniques, and all of this cost plus the cost of sidewalks. We know, and the study notes, that the Mattituck hamlet needs sidewalks, so sidewalks should be included in this or any traffic management plan that goes forth. From start to finish, these solutions should take anywhere from 2 years to 5 years. But let's make no mistake, now is the time to get started. Washington, as anyone paying attention knows, is abuzz with talk of an infrastructure bill, perhaps the first in a generation. We must, as a community, have this proposal developed into a shovel-ready project to receive funding the moment it becomes available. Well, how do you generate a shovel-ready project? Well, we keep doing a lot of things that we're already doing, and that's our elected officials at all levels, especially federal, all the way down to local. They need to continue to work together so that we're ready for this opportunity. The town of Southold and the New York State Department of Transportation, they need to continue to work together to turn this study into a project that's shovel ready. And so that when infrastructure dollars are available, we are a leading candidate. And now is the time to do that. And with that, the presentation ends. Thank you. Let's talk. And I can bring any of the slides that we've seen tonight back up on the screen for me.
John, do you want to make me a co-host, help you out with that so we can leave the presentation up?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. I had a dog barking in the background.
Do you want to make me a?
Oh, yes.
So I can help you see who has hands up. So you can either do hands up or write a
Yes.
question in the chat. And we have people on the board kind of taking notes too. So we're gathering, one of our goals is to get your feedback and get everybody who wants to go to the town board presentation coming up in April. I'm exhausted, John, just listening to the presentation, and John and I have gone through it a few times. I read the study a couple of times, but I could not have synthesized it the way you did. So well done, John, well done.
Thanks.
There's a couple of questions coming up for us to take note of regarding cars parked on the road and bicycle safety, bike lanes. These are things we want to make sure we're attending to. So 2 things came up with that.
Let's start with those. Although I didn't talk about bike lanes in the presentation, bike lanes are discussed in the study and appropriately. And the point for us at this point is that if you're going to have a bike lane, and I'm a biker, I love bike lanes. If you're going to have a bike lane, the space for it has to come from somewhere. And if we're working within an existing footprint, and this is beyond the intersection itself, including but beyond the intersection, that space for a bike lane has to come from somewhere. So we have to be prepared to weigh the widening of roads or the narrowing of lanes so that we can accommodate vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. That's how we have to approach that. And so that's an ongoing issue. As for parking, I don't think we have to take a walk down the street to recognize that not all of Route 25 going through Mattituck is ready for on-street parking. But there are areas, especially where there are intersections like Bay and Main, Wickham and Main, where if there are bump outs, neck outs as they call them, then already wide shoulders where parking does take place would be identified as such. Because of the neck outs and the bump outs, the driver is already confined closer to the center of the road. It is more in their lane rather than there's all this room to fluctuate. And those are the places that are best suited for on-street parking. Again, it has to be practical, it has to be possible, it has to be appropriate.
So, John, we can save this chat too, right? So we'll have all these statements.
Yes.
Them.
Yes.
Linda, do you want to unmute, because you've got a couple of things about biking and then the left onto 25. Would you like to unmute and ask your own question?
Sure. Well, the one question I guess was answered about the bike lanes, but I just I say look at the town of Southold with the parking there, and trying to ride your bicycle through these areas that have parking is difficult. So I feel like the parking on the street, I understand that it slows traffic, but I think you need to think about where exactly you would want that parking, because I can't see why you need parking on the street, let's say between Bay Avenue and Handy Pantry, because everything there is a parking lot. And so I think you just have to be judicious in choosing where to put these parking spots and whether you need them or not. Instead of taking away a bicycle lane when that's what you need there, not parking for cars. But I'm sure, I'm just stating my opinion. And the other thing was, I was just curious because living on Bay Avenue, I go to 25, and there are times that I'll, want to make a left on 25, and often what I'll do is I'll cross into the turning lane so that I can get across the eastbound traffic and sit there and wait for a break in the opening on the westbound traffic. I don't know if that's legal or not, but I'm not the only one who does that. And if you put an island there, then, I mean, I understand the bump out part, I could see that, but if you actually put an island for people to cross over, land on, and then cross the next lane, it just seems like Bay Avenue then is going to turn that into a problem like what we have at I'm sorry, at the corner of Handy Pantry there. The name
Yes, one block east.
yeah,
That's Pacific Avenue.
so I just feel like you're creating a problem with that unless you just prohibit left turns onto 25 from Bay Avenue, which I think you would need to do if you put that island, because you're just going to end up with a mess there, and then that'll be the dangerous intersection in Mattituck.
Thank you. Thank you. Good points.
Another suggestion noted to consider a median in the middle center of Main Road for traffic calming rather than parking. So just another thing to put down in brainstorming.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wondered if anyone else had another question or comment.
Yeah, I wrote mine down.
I see a hand, but I'm going to let you handle it. Yeah.
Okay, is it Al has his hand up?
Thank you. I just want to commend everyone here. You know, I didn't realize it was 5 years since you've been working on this as a community, and it's a real testament to your persistence. And, you know, the fact that you've come to a conclusion is pretty impressive. And I want to thank the town also for working with you, and because they've been, I'm sure, a great partner. I see Michael Collins is on tonight, and I don't think you could have a better partner here. So the federal bill that you're talking about is the service infrastructure bill. And so I think there is a lot of potential if you had, you're right, if you had something ready to go, that there will be money available, you know, for projects like this. So this is certainly a legitimate traffic safety project. And so I saw someone ask the question about the Roanoke Avenue Circle. The alternative there, that's a county road there. The alternative is going to be another light. And I think the circle, I think the consensus, and this is not an engineering term, but the circle's better than a light. So I think that from use, you've got a lot of lights there, and then you've got the circle, and I think there's, you know, you can make a pretty good comparison.
Thank you. And also to mention, the county did partner with the town on this in helping fund the initial study. And I know South Town then really persisted with this and added on to that study to extend it as far as they did. Of course, now we would like to learn more. But you're right, Al, it's really been a group intermunicipality effort all around. Anyone else have a hand up? Or Sarah Napa, Councilwoman Napa?
And then Gloria.
And then Gloria?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there. I just really wanted to thank you. And John, what an excellent presentation of the AKRF report. It was really well laid out and well explained, and I appreciate that. So everyone knows, and I agree with Legislator Krupski. You know, the circle is so much better than a light, and it's kind of part of you know, more of a rural charm that, you know, you see in places like the North Fork. So I really think that that's a great option, and I hope that we can work out the other details of the crosswalks and such over on Bay Avenue. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate you putting this together for your membership and to get the word out there. So
My pleasure. My thinking on what goes here has evolved from well, it's just evolved many times. And I think what we need to keep in mind is that when it comes to time to design, that's where that is in the details, and that's what's going to make that roundabout should that come about.
John, could you just put that slide back up that shows the work that the Civic did with the Syracuse University students? Because I think that context is important to show that, this is not simply about the circle, but about some comprehensive, like really looking at what is the comp plan saying, what do businesses need, what do pedestrians need? It's a bigger conversation. I do see Nan Reeve has her hand up. Nan, do you want to unmute?
I just wanted to find out, do we have the final say on the smaller of the two traffic circles?
I think at this point, we are gathering as much information as we can, and then things will go to the town. April 13th, they're having a presentation.
Right.
Or Mike, want to help us know like how this?
Yeah, ultimately, it's a state road. The state has the final say in everything.
Ew.
That's what this comes down to. This whole exercise is trying to engage the state in a plan that is acceptable to them and us so that we can move forward together and identify funding to move it forward. But ultimately, the state has the final say in anything that happens here. In that entire study area, the only place we have complete control over is Old Sound. And that's it. Every other intersection, the state will have the final say.
And Mike, I know you've been engaged with the state all along, and there's been many conversations. So once the town holds a meeting, I don't know if Sarah answers this or you, I'm sure there's some stretch of time where you're really looking for responses to what we're looking at, so you can communicate that as a town, and then you work directly with the state. Is that how it works?
Yeah, essentially, we will synthesize all of the information that we've been given and then try and come to a consensus with the state on the extent of the project and what it will actually look like. And then, of course, we wouldn't try and push it forward if ultimately the state was not interested in implementing something that would work for us. So for instance, the 120-foot diameter circle isn't going to work for us in any way, shape, or form. And so if they insist upon that and we can't move them off it, that would probably kill that part of the project. But I don't think it's an insurmountable obstacle. I think it's something that they're trying to design something that happens so infrequently, and in most cases shouldn't happen at all. We have a weight load limit turning onto and off of Love Lane. And so 2 of the 4 points of this traffic circle, you wouldn't want those vehicles going that direction anyway. So if what you're saying is you want these vehicles to be able to go east-west through here unimpeded, well, County Road 48 is the solution for that. You don't want huge long-haul trucks traveling through this corridor east and west. You want to push that to 48.
And there are a number of hands up, and I believe Gloria Greco has had her hand up for Lawrence.
Thank you. I can't see everybody.
Thanks, John. Thank you. This is really great work, and it's exciting to see it come to this point, right? We're really on the verge of something here. I guess, I was thinking back to some of the earlier comments that this actually could enable us to avoid a lot of issues around left turns, not just on this corner, but all of the surrounding corners. I mean, I know every time I try to come out of a parking lot to cross the road, this just gives people the ability to make the turn in a much more fluid way and not have to take your life in your hands every time you want to make a left turn or a right turn, going east. So, left turn going east. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I guess one question I had, and maybe it goes back to what the Riverhead town has experienced, but what does the study look at what we can anticipate drivers will do once this is there? In other words, do we think that it will deter people from actually using the traffic circle and drive traffic to other roads? Or do we think that this will sort of make it easier for people and therefore they'll, continue to use 25 as the main?
Great question, Gloria, and I'll try to answer it, but I think Michael Collins can probably offer a little more depth. And that is one of the impacts of changing a routine is to compel users to adapt. And for example, the 67-foot trucks, they're going to have to adapt. They would have to adapt and move to 48. And for someone like me who lives on New Suffolk Avenue, if I want to go west on 25, I'm either going to take a right, go around the circle and head out, or I'm going to figure out a different alternative. So I think the more disruptive a change is, the more impact it's going to have on day-to-day drivers. This one is people still get to go east and west and in and out of Love Lane and Old Sound Avenue. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not that big of a change.
Mike, do you have anything to add to that in terms of how the sort of unintended consequences scenarios get played out?
Well, I would agree. This is the least impactful option of all the options that were presented. I think if you look at some of the other things that were talked about, like creating raised pedestrian islands, what we didn't talk about is that actually eliminates all of the dedicated left turn lanes along the road. That would create a problem. But here, this shouldn't really have a major impact at all. It should, other than a beneficial impact, it should smooth out traffic. I don't believe, I personally never turn left onto Main Road from New Suffolk. I will do anything else other than make that left. And I think that forcing people to go right and then loop around will be a benefit, even though I'm sure it will aggravate some people. But, at the end of the day, everything here should be a net improvement. Also, I know Roanoke has been brought up a number of times. I think everyone should also remember that traffic circle is a completely different animal because you have a double lane approaching east and west. So in this case, every entry and exit point is a single lane of travel, whereas Roanoke is a circle within a circle. And that creates its own headaches. I think that's why a lot of people get weirded out when they first approach that intersection. It's because they're not quite sure which traffic is continuing around and could potentially exit, which is going to follow the inner circle and perhaps travel as much as 270 before it goes down a side road. It's a completely different type of intersection. All this is doing is smoothing out and separating eastbound, westbound, northbound, southbound traffic and preventing them from interacting with each other.
Thank you, Michael. And we have a few more hands up. There's one question about how much private property, could be taken if we go roundabout. Now, I have on the screen the 120-foot outer diameter, and on this, here's the corner of right where my cursor is. Can you see my cursor? You guys see that? Oh, there it is. Okay, now it's left.
Yep.
All right, so right here is the existing corner of Love Lane and Old Sound Avenue. All right, and that's a full traffic lane. You move back a full traffic lane into Mattituck-Laurel. Right around here is where Old Sound Avenue and 25 meet the sidewalk. As you can see here, more than a full traffic lane. Nothing is done over here. It doesn't seem to take any property over here.
If you'd like to get a better sense of this, if you go back to the 100-foot one,
Yes,
show you exactly where the only encroachment is and then realize that it's 10 feet beyond that in most directions. So right there, it's that tiny little sliver on the corner of the church property, which isn't really being used. It would just become part of the roadway, and then we'd build the sidewalk section behind it. But so if you look at this picture, the double hash long line along the outside of each of these, that's the right of way boundary. That's the existing boundary of the state right of way. So you'd have to go beyond that in most places in order to build the 120-foot one.
thank you.
So you'd be taking property on all three corners in most likelihood, and probably a portion of that, the southbound curve, or the southern curve that's east-west.
Thank you. Okay, and I think that addresses that question.
Yeah, and again, in terms of cost, those other two corners and that east-west curve, that's inherently more valuable property than that corner of the church property, which has some value, but it's not being actively used.
Still there, Ann?
I see some hands and there are some questions in the chat. Want to go?
I think Nancy's up next.
Okay. Nancy, you still have a question?
No,
Okay, all right, I'll put your hand down.
okay.
Meryl Kramer?
Meryl Kramer.
Hi. I don't know how to find out this information, but it would be interesting and I think valuable to know. I know that Mike Collins just explained that the traffic circle at Riverhead and Roanoke is a different animal completely. There's another traffic circle that I find really pleasant to drive, and I was really glad when they did it on the intersection of Osborne and Middle Road, which is in Riverhead. I don't know how we go about finding out what that diameter is, and I just think it would help people to be able to drive other places and understand how the traffic flows and understand what it feels like. And I think that, because I know we all know that people don't like change, and people don't like things that are unfamiliar to them. And I do think that particular intersection is very pleasant, and could maybe, it's a less busy intersection, certainly, but somebody felt the need to manage those roads for safety purposes. Obviously, this one is much more in need of management. Anyway, so it might be helpful just to have comparisons so people can understand. Thank you.
Yeah, once things get, moving, I'm sure this is just the very beginning of this, but it would be good to, when something is settled on, to give people comparison places so they could go drive around those circles and see what they feel like. Because now I'm very tuned in to roundabouts, as they say in Ireland.
I'm pulling up an aerial right now so I can measure that.
Great.
Thanks.
Victoria, do you want to ask your question about trucks and brakes? Or do you want me to read it? Either one. I'll read. Did you unmute?
Hi, Ann.
There you go. Go ahead.
Hi, Vicky Cortez here.
Oh, Vicky. Oh, Victoria.
Yeah, living right in this area. I'm concerned at the number of enormous trucks and the use of engine brakes to slow down. And I wanted to know, is this really an issue that can be addressed either by the town or the state?
Good question, Victoria. I don't know the answer. It sounds like a traffic enforcement resolution, but yeah, I hear those engine brakes. Whew, they're loud.
Oh, boy, they're loud, John, aren't they?
Yeah.
They really shake the house. We're right in the corridor here, of course, and they really shake the house. And even in the backyard, I can hear them. So I was wondering, you know, because they all use it, does it have to be a town code issue or a law, local law, that can prevent the use of engine brakes? Because when I travel to Maine and when I travel out west to the state of Washington, they all seem to have town codes saying no engine brakes.
Right.
You know,
Right.
signage that says no engine brakes. So I just wondered if anybody knew if it's a town issue or a state issue or both.
Well, we have people from all those places on the call, so I'm sure someone can get back to us on if there is any regulation on that.
Thank you, Ann.
Very
Thank
good
you.
question. I mean, I can hear them all the way where I am, and I'm pretty
Oh,
far from that road.
yeah.
Okay, I just measured it. The Osborne Avenue is 185 feet diameter. The inner island itself is 145 feet.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Pastoral. Two more questions.
Okay, I don't see.
Sarah, can you go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to address and on the engine brakes, you know, and Michael could correct me if he knows, but my guess would be that anything on Route 25 is going to be signage wise is going to be a state issue. And, you know, if it's obviously a town road, we can address that at the town board, but anything, you know, on 48 would be the county issue, and anything on 25, even signage, would be the state. We'd have to go to the state for, just to clear that up.
No, Sarah's absolutely correct. We actually have signage that we wanted to put up on 25, alerting truck drivers that they couldn't turn left onto left lane, but we can't put that up without permission from the state DOT. I mean, I'm sure people have seen the Hamlet heritage signs that go up along state roads occasionally. You wouldn't believe the process to get those approved.
And Zoom user would like to.
User, I
put a
don't know if
question.
it's a hand or a new hand, but unmute. If you are asking a question, Zoom user.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You have to unmute.
Oh,
You unmuted and then muted. Can I unmute her?
no, you should be able to.
I will only ask her to unmute.
Unmute.
There you go.
Okay. When traffic is backed up from the light going west, and I see the traffic all the way backed up, if there's traffic backed up to the circle, which happens, how does the circle then function? Because as it stands now, when people are going west and traffic is backed up, they take Sound Avenue as an alternate route, and then they turn over by, you know, the supermarket turn, you know, that on Sound Avenue to get back on to the main road. So my question is, what happens when all that traffic backs up? What happens to the function of the circle? Because it won't move.
No, and I don't mean to sound flip, but the traffic at the circle is going to stand still. You know, it's going to be up to the drivers to implement the zipper technique. You know, one person goes, another person goes, and so forth. There's only two roads, and they're overtaxed.
Does Mike have any suggestion?
I'm sorry, I was answering someone's question via text. What was the question?
The question is, when the light turns red over by, Bay Avenue. Well, that's not Bay Avenue. What is that? Over by the ice cream.
Factory
Magic
Institute.
Fountain. Okay,
Factory
light-
Sigsbee, right?
factory, yeah. When that turns red, and I have seen traffic backed up all the way to the circle. What happens to the circle? And John said everything stands still. Is that correct? As it stands now, when traffic is backed up all the way to Love Lane, which I've seen cars take Sound Avenue. And they take Sound Avenue over the railroad track, and they continue where they can make a left and come up where Factory Avenue is, and then join again on 25. That's what I've seen going on when it's very heavily trafficked in that area. But my question is the function of the circle. It is, as John said, it just stops, correct? What else could you do?
Well, the only other option you would have at that point would be to change the signalization to the light to prevent that from happening. It could be that they could change the light timing at periods of high traffic or the high season to prevent that from happening. But short of
Okay.
that, then yes, traffic just comes to a standstill.
All right, so that's usually Sunday, when everyone's going home. They go west, maybe they can do something with the light.
Or again, if that becomes a persistent problem, theoretically, people's behavior will change and they will move to 48 and move westbound in that direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other hands? And I don't see any more questions on the chat.
So many things to look at on this screen, John.
There's more.
Anyone else? A lot to think about.
John, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you.
Yes.
Our founding president, Mary Eisenstein.
This is going out to legislator Krupski, Michael Collins, and Sarah Napa. And Al Krupski made reference, John, to your persistence, and you have done an amazing job, but you also did this before and a presentation to the town board. So after all these years of the process, the studies, the question to the three of you is, after the next presentation to the town board, what are the actual steps that need to be taken to bring this project to implementation, to have it actually manifested? And Michael, you made reference to the challenge working with the state. That's the reason I'm asking this question. What are the actual steps? Once, this community has come together many times, had public hearings, put together these detailed presentations. How do you get this to implementation?
Well, Mary, I'm gonna pass the answer on to somebody else, because there are better qualified people to answer that. Al, Sarah, Michael, help yourself.
It's two steps. One, we have to engage the DOT and get them to buy into a project that we can support. And then two, we need to get the funding. And one of the reasons we had looked at, one of the things we looked at in the past with this, and one of the reasons that we actually did the study, is that every once in a while we would get one of these transportation grants that would come along, and we had nothing to submit. now we have something that we can submit. So, and especially because this is located near a train station, it could qualify for what they call an intermodal funding, because it's at the nexus of a highway and a train station. I realize that it's probably a stretch from the federal standpoint, but it's as good as you're going to get in a rural area.
So Michael, as a follow-up to what you're saying, who leads that process? So obviously you have to bring the state to sit at the table, but does there need to be somebody that's, no pun intended, going to drive this to implementation, to take those steps to make it happen?
Yes, essentially it would be town board, state representatives, and theoretically federal as well if the funding stems from the federal government.
Thank you, Michael, for that very direct answer.
Definitely thank you for that. That's so important. We have a question here from Susan. What have been the concerns of the retailers on Love Lane and adjacent?
They are, I mean, I'll just chat on that a little bit. John, I know they've been engaged in the process. Jean and I walked the streets, both sides of Love Lane and across on Main Road, letting them know about this meeting. We certainly want to, as a civic, help have a focus group of conversation with all of the retailers and folks on Love Lane. They all were very interested and wanted to keep reading about it, and I'm sure they will. But they clearly will be part of the conversation. We did try to find funding a while back before COVID to amend the study scope to include a walking tour with the consultants. They wanted to engage the community, so we can sort of get back to that idea where we look at these ideas and with clipboards kind of take a walk together and say, here's where that would be, here's where that would be, and let everybody imagine it in person and kind of give us that feedback. But I think the chamber is aware of this, as well as the business owners along that whole area, and I know the environmental council is right there too. There's a lot of impacted people. They will be included.
Thank you, Anne. I have nothing to add to that. I think they're paying close attention. We have another question here from Gloria. What can individual residents do to advocate with the town board to urge action? Well, the first thing would be to participate in the town's April 13th, April 13th, 7 p.m. Meeting at which this report is going to be discussed. After that, participate in that, contribute to that. I think in addition to that, calls and letters, the traditional outreach are probably the most effective. And I think the state officials, whoops, somebody's off mute there. State officials and even federal officials need to be included as well.
I think I got everybody muted. Yes, and very gratefully from the association is having state and local representatives, county and local representatives here listening in. Because as we said in the beginning, it's the beginning of a conversation, a long-awaited conversation, but the beginning where we're starting to imagine some possibilities. John, do you see any other comments or questions?
On chat, I don't see any hands up. Are we missing anyone out there? Just butt right in.
And I don't know who wants to have the last word tonight, John.
Go right ahead, Anne.
All righty. 8 o'clock, so well done. Again, thank you. I really want to thank the Mattituck-Laurel Civic Association well before I had the pleasure to step in and help out. Your work is commendable. Your commitment, our commitment to community engagement is, from all the work I've done in the school district, I know what we're made of out here and how we do things. We want to have the conversations even when we don't necessarily agree. And I don't feel like this is one of those situations where we're kind of fighting anyone or fighting for something as much as we're trying to problem solve the problems identified. So I couldn't be happier to have Mike Collins here, Councilwoman Napa, County Legislator Krupski, Senator Palumbo's office, Angela Noncaro. I mean, thank you all so much for taking some more Zoom time and listening to people. So to those people who are in decision-making places, please know your civic, not just this civic, but all of the North Fork civics are mobilized and ready to hold conversations. So Mike, if there was hey, we've got this idea, that idea, we'll pull 10 people together for you if you want it picked apart from any perspective. We're happy to get those impacted by these decisions listening in and helping us out. I also think and would challenge any of us who have the expertise or interest to form a study group on this concept of shovel ready. The consolidated grant application, while can be overwhelming when you first look at it, it's really just writing a story about what you want, why you want it, how much it costs, and who's going to match some of the funds. Intermodal funding, that's going to be the next thing I learn about. No idea what that one is, but if there's money there, this association likes to learn things, and we'll figure it out. We're not afraid to call. I think this was an extremely productive meeting. We always have really great meetings and they're always productive, but when we feel like something's actually going to go to that next level, we continue to be inspired by all of you for hanging out with us and having the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Now we can unmute and start saying bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for all of your hard work. It's really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Beautiful job.
My pleasure.
Nice
Thanks, John.
presentation. Thank
Great
you.
job. Thank you.
Angela,
All
thank
right,
you.
very nice.
Thanks, guys.
Please send the senator
Thank
wishes
you.
for getting a budget passed.
Yes, I will.
Thank you for being here, Angela. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Presentation.
Good job.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well done.
Thanks, Ann. Nice wrap up. Michael, thank you. Very valuable input.
You want Mike?
Well,
Mike probably wants you to present for him on 13th.
okay, Ann,
All
we're
right.
out of here.
Be well. Thanks,
We'll be in
John.
touch.
All
You
right.
too. Bye-bye.
I can end meeting for all. That's
Oh,
powerful.
you can.